Good day, everyone. I am Travis Giffen. I am the Assistant Director of Online Programs here at the University of Illinois and the College of Education. Thank you for joining us for our alumni panel this evening. We have two wonderful alumni from our online programs here in the College of Education, Dr. Marley Bunch and Tyler Rutledge. Really appreciate them joining us today. I'm going to go ahead and start a quick poll that I have here at the start just to get some input on who we have that is joining us today. And then just a heads up, I will have a poll at the end of the session just to get your feedback on how things went. And with that said, give everybody a heads up. We'll be doing kind of two portions of questions to both of the panelists. We'll start with some questions about student experience and what it was like for them as a student. And then we'll have some questions about what they're doing currently in their careers. And then I'll open that up again for a Q&A for folks. And then you all will be more than welcome to ask any questions to our panelists or about online programs. We have some staff members. Myself, Brianna Davis is here also, and Sangeetha Gopala Christian also just joined us. So if they answer your questions in chat, you can know that they're from the University of Illinois. So with that, I'm going to give both of our panelists a brief time to introduce themselves. Dr. Bunch, would you introduce yourself briefly?
Sure. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining. My name is Dr. Marley Bunch, and I graduated from the online program in EPOL with a concentration in diversity, equity, and inclusion, and I graduated in 2022. Grateful to be here.
Thank you so much. And Tyler, would you introduce yourself?
Yeah, thank you. And again, thank you for having me and thank you guys for coming. I am Tyler Rutledge. I also graduated with a master's, though, through the EPOL with a concentration in equity and diversity. I recently graduated this past December in 2023.
Thank you so much for that brief introduction. With that, so I'll start this first off. I'll ask a question. Marley, you'll have a chance to answer, and then Tyler, I'll give you a chance to answer that question also. So for the first question I have is, what were you doing before you started your program?
Sure. Thanks for the question. So before I started the program, I was teaching at the secondary level, and then COVID hit, and my district was one of the only schools in the state of Missouri that didn't shut down. I've got a high-risk family member in the home, and so I decided to take that time and pursue my doctorate. And so I started online classes, I think right as COVID hit or right before.
Thank you. Tyler, what were you doing before you started your program?
Yeah, so when I started the program, I was entering my third year of teaching at the high school secondary level. I knew that I had wanted to go for a master's. I was trying to decide what I wanted to do. And while in the school that I'm at, I was working with our building equity team and trying to work with our district equity team as well too. And then when I was able to find this program, I decided to take that on as what my concentration was going to be.
Thank you. So, and then the next question I have is, why did you select the program that you selected? So you both ended up choosing diversity and equity programs, different levels. But so why did you end up choosing that program over any other programs that you were looking at the time?
I wanted to choose a program that had a specific focus on diversity and equity, just because I think in education, it's such an important component of what we do as educators, and also kind of the key to ensuring that education is equitable and makes the shifts that it needs to ensure that we're providing the best for all of our students. And it was the only program that I could find that had a sole focus on DEI that wasn't just a certificate. And so that was my reason for choosing it. And also the reputation of the University of Illinois as well.
Thank you. Tyler, how about you?
Yeah, ever since I finished my undergrad for education, DEI was always a huge proponent of like what I wanted to do. And being in a school that has I think we're at 49% minority rate at this point at right now. I wanted to make sure that I could bring more opportunities to my students because I knew enough of some of the options and opportunities, but I wanted to dive a little bit further. And like Dr. Bunch, like I wanted to find something that was solely for DEI. And I did a lot of research and being an active, like a current teacher at that time. And I wanted to try to find something that was solely online as well. And that was one of the better options for me because being going to working and then going right to class, I've done that for enough time with my undergrad that I wasn't looking to do that anymore. And so and it fit really well for me. The class schedule fit really well. And as I did like comparison research between different schools, I was able to see again, like Dr. Bunch said, that the superiority that that program particularly brought about when compared to other national programs. And so I decided to see how it went and went for it.
Thank you for answering that. So last question I have here. So folks, if you have other questions, you can start thinking about what your questions specifically that you might have. You can either type those in the chat, or you can use the raise hand function in Zoom, or if you have your camera on, you can go ahead and turn that on and wave or raise your hand, and I can call on you and you can go ahead and ask that question. But last question we have before we open up for some Q&A about the programs and what it was like being a student that I have here is, so what advice would you give to future or current students about how to get through or choosing a program that's right for you? What advice would you give to them?
I would definitely recommend the University of Illinois. I would also say find your mentors, find your peer support group. I think that was really, really instrumental in helping me successfully complete the program. And then to also just kind of leverage and use the resources that professors share with students in coursework. I think those are really key elements to success.
Thank you. And Tyler, how about you?
Yeah, I would like to echo a lot of what she was saying. One of the things that I also share with a lot of my seniors in high school, at least, is like find something that you're passionate about. I teaching a lot of seniors, they're like, oh, I just have to go to school. And then they just start, and a couple years later, they come back and they're like, I don't know what I want to do. And having that passion makes the learning easier, but also more fun too. And that's the beauty of college is in high school, you have a prescribed curriculum that you have to follow. And yes, if you want a specific major, there's specific class courses you must take, but you still get to choose what you want to be and what you want to do. And that's again why I chose this program. But as Dr. Bunch had said, like those resources were vital for me because working full time and trying to do classes, it was not always simple to do that extra research on my own, or to find some of the things that were necessary. And so having that extra guidance was vital. But one of the things that I did as well too, just to make sure is like I after every quarter or after excuse me every semester I always ran a degree audit too to make sure that I was on track where I needed to be because everything was listed out very well, but sometimes I don't trust technology or that something went the right way, so reaching out to your advisor, making sure that everything did get put where it needs to be. It took a lot off my mind, at least in that component of knowing that yes, I'm on track. I should be able to finish at this point, and that way, then you have those guarantees.
Thank you for that input and advice. So we do have first question here in the chat for Dr. Bunch. So this one is for students currently in the EPOL doctoral program, what advice would you give to them as they begin to think about how to apply their research beyond working directly in the classroom?
That's a great question. I think as you start to think about your area of research and maybe what your research question is, think about ways that it will be actionable or ways that it could be actionable outside of the classroom. and how can your specific area of research maybe create or generate some sort of change? I think that would be my recommendation.
We had another question here. I'd be interested in both of your inputs on this one. Can you share a bit more about your experience in the format with the 8-week classes? So this is a different aspect about our program that a lot of the classes, in the fall and the spring semester are 2 8-week periods for classes. How was that for both of you with managing them while working full time? And we'll start with Tyler on this one.
Thank you. Great question. So for me, because I knew how many courses I needed to take, so I started planning that out semester wise first. But I also took it slow for my first semester. I took one course each of those 8 weeks just to see what the coursework was like. This was the first time I had taken graduate courses, and personally, during my undergrad, I hated online courses to begin with, just because there is a lot of time management component with it. Um, but many of the times my professors laid out very descriptive ways to go through the readings, and then typically there was only one meeting per week where it was a couple hours. But one of the things that I always did is I always dedicated at least 2 days outside of that meeting class for all of my readings and all of the extra components that I needed to do. um, it's definitely a difficult thing, again, managing that time in general. But for me, it helped to say, okay, on these 2 days, these are the only 2 days I'm going to work on it. That way, then I didn't stress out. Like if it was Friday night, I knew that, okay, cool, I'm going to work on it Sunday night, and that helped to take away some of that extra like overbearing component. But I would also suggest don't put the work off either, because there were many times where I was like, okay, well, I can skip this reading, and then I just felt behind, and then I felt like it started piling on very quickly, because yeah, 8 weeks moves very fast, and staying on top of everything was a huge component. But if you ever feel like you want to get ahead, most of the time my professors had the whole 8 weeks course scheduled out. And so looking ahead and trying to, if you get everything done in one day instead of two, then work on the next week's stuff on that second day. Or yeah, and then as I continued to move forward, I was able to do the second semester. I was able to do 2 courses per per 8 weeks, and that wasn't unmanageable, but I would definitely not recommend doing more than two. 2 courses is a heavy load, and sometimes that just they overlap very closely. And I definitely got lost in the weeds a few times. I'm like, oh yeah, this article said this, but it was for a fully different class.
Thank you, Tyler. And then Marley, do you have anything else that you'd like to add about the 8-week formats?
No, I think the 8-week format is really reasonable. I enjoyed it as a mom and a wife and a, student. I felt like I could manage courses and the other part of my life, and it made it really flexible. So I love that. I agree with Tyler about having dedicated time. And so I would always block off evening time after the kids were in bed to either write or research or read and do homework. But yeah, I loved the format of the 8 weeks. I thought it was really flexible.
Thank you. Next question we have here is, how has the program impacted your approach to the work that you do now? We'll start with Marley and then Tyler.
Yeah, I got really lucky. I know the advice early on was pick a research question a research area that you're really interested in, because you spend so much time with it, you don't want it to be something that by the end you are completely sick of. And so I got lucky and chose something that was really important to me. And so it's just really allowed me to continue my research to date and build upon what I learned in the program. So I think that's been a really vital piece of my experience at U of I.
And to add on to that, for me, what it did for me is like it opened up a few different opportunities. One of those opportunities is at my school's district level. We are currently looking at and revamping a district equity position, and they were looking with someone with a degree in that, and so that's opened up that opportunity. But while I'm still at the building level, it's allowed me to work closer and more effectively with our equity team on breaking down some of those prejudices, but also helping to find those people on the fence on, okay, are we doing this? How much buy-in? And it's giving me a lot more of those facts and figures, to allow, and just like historical concepts of being able to persuade and help push people towards the use of equitable components. But also, it's just opened up a lot of my eyes to different works in general, and mostly just writing and different books to just explore for myself, and something that I probably would have found on my own, but it would have taken a little bit longer.
Thank you both. I have another question here. That looks like a couple of people had the same question here, or a similar question. So this question is about what kind of balance that you saw between the peers in your programs, who was coming from elementary or second education environments versus higher education. Two people have said that they're coming from higher education, so they were just interested in what your experiences were with the makeup of fellow students that you worked with.
I think it's a really nice balance. I will say that I felt like peers were always diverse, from ethnic background to age to areas of research to careers. We also have international students, so that was always great. And so I think you'll get a nice mix of everything from elementary to secondary to higher ed. I think most of the courses that I took focused, had a little bit more of a K-12 lens, I would say, but that was probably because of the area of concentration that I had. But I really think there's a really nice, healthy balance amongst peers.
Yeah, I would echo that. The majority of my classes had almost a 50-50 split of people coming from higher ed or coming um, from secondary. And there were always a handful of people who just came out of their undergrad and are starting their masters. And it was nice to see those different perspectives, because not being in higher ed and never having worked in higher ed, it was very nice to see how some of these concepts are being applied there. And it's also then allowed me to again see, okay, this is how it's working here. Can we adjust it? And a lot of our conversations were, okay, how can we take this higher ed policy and adjust it to the K-12 setting? Um, but it was a great feeling. A few of my classes were more focused on higher ed, and those, I will just, to be honest, they weren't my favorite, just because they were outside of my expertise, and it was a lot more to take in, a little bit harder for me, just because it wasn't as applicable. But the discussions during the class made those components applicable, and that's what helped salvage a lot of those components of my degree.
Thank you both. So we have a few more questions here. Thanks for all the questions, everybody. These are great questions. So we have another question is, what sort of opportunities do each of you had to build connections with faculty and peers in the online format?
I was in the middle of typing that, but I think they do. The EPOL professors realize that it's an online format, so I think they work really intentionally to create opportunities to connect. I walked away with many peers who I'm still in contact with and became friends with. You do a lot of small group work, which gives you the opportunity to know other peers. You find peers with similar research interests, and as you're going through your exams and things of that nature, there are study groups. I know Dr. Lee is really great about doing like online celebrations, virtual celebrations. And then again, some of the courses I think really are intentional about creating opportunities to connect. So I had a great experience with that.
Same. I had a very good experience, and every course had a discussion post, but it was never the, hey, here, make two posts and then respond to one person, then you never look at it again. I had a number of professors that were like, no, this is where you have that opportunity to discuss, because in class, the first half of it would be lecture, the second half is small group. And typically those were the better places to find some more of those interests from others. But even with staff, I've reached out to a few of my professors, from things that my high school has brought up, or different topics that have been brought up, or different ideas that I wanted more information on. And they were very happy to either provide that expertise their own, or I've had a few professors connect me with their graduate assistants, and we've had those conversations and shared information. And so it's very welcoming, in the sense of building that community, because that's what's going to allow for the learning to make more depth.
Thank you both. We have another question here. How would you both describe the culture, the graduate, the graduate programs, especially with it being an online program? Was it a collaborative experience? Do you feel connected with the U of I network post-degree completion?
I put it in the chat, but I'll just speak to it briefly. I do. I feel like U of I is where I found my lifelong mentor. So I will always give credit for that. And I have felt incredibly supported post-graduation in my writing endeavors and career endeavors. So U of I is going to have a hard time getting rid of me, because I really am just so grateful for the connections that I was able to form while in the program, and they've extended beyond.
And I would echo that. It is hard to connect to a physical building. I know my undergrad is here in the same, like I went to Ohio State, and so every now and then I end up driving past campus. I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. Like that was the building, and like I can show my son. And it's been a little bit harder with U of I, just because I wasn't able to be on campus physically. But I have made that opportunity to go once, and so that I could like make that connection for myself. And it was because of the connections I made with other people that drove me to want to do that. And so community wise, culture wise, at least, sorry, um, it was very collaborative. Like Dr. Bunch had said, like there were, of the 8 courses, I think 3 of them we had to do small group projects. And so having that collaborative nature of working and with a lot of other people, multiple different people, but also still seeing a lot of the same faces throughout that course period was nice. There was probably 4 people that we just 4 or 5 courses in a row we saw each other, and it was really nice to have those common faces, because it's like, oh, I do know someone in here. Whereas if it's a physical building, like yes, it's a little bit more common, but it was still a great feeling to have that.
That's great to hear from both of you. I like to always try to, everybody here at the university and College of Education works to try and make sure that everybody feels a part of the university here. Um, yeah, well, I'm not seeing another question really for this portion. I see you're having a chat there, Marley, which seems great. But with that, I'm going to go ahead and we'll move over to the career portion for questions for both of you, and then open up for questions about that. And then we should still have plenty of time to, again, if there's any other questions, even about the student experience portion, still feel free to ask those. We'll be able to get those answered also. So since last time we started with Dr. Bunch first and then Tyler, we'll start with Tyler and then go to Dr. Bunch. So first question I have for both of you is, could you share a bit more about what you're currently doing in your career right now?
Yeah, so currently I'm in my 4th year teaching. I'm getting ready to finish that up, but I do sit on our uh, building equity team, where we do have a head, and I, I'm I try to work as their kind of right hand man. And in that we are looking at I can't speak tonight, different policies more than anything of how we can promote equitable solutions within the building. Recently, we were looking at different situations that have happened within the district and looking at how we can address them and have more of those courageous conversations. And then also, I help to be a point person for a lot of teachers who are struggling with some of these ideas but want to know more but don't want to raise their hand in a staff meeting and say, I don't get it, I don't understand, because that can be a struggle for a lot of people. And so being that face that people can come to has made deeper connections for myself with my colleagues, but allowed me to figure out more directly how to help certain people as well too within the concepts of integrating DEI into their classroom.
Thank you, Tyler. And Dr. Bunch, can you share about what you're doing? I know you have some exciting things. Please feel free to share them with everybody too. So.
Sure. So in my time since graduation, I've gotten to do some work with the TEACH program at U of I and help write some curriculum. So that's teaching equitable Asian American community history. And that's a really great resource for educators who are looking to have more of that cultural competence knowledge in the classroom. I've also gotten to do some work for the Office of the Chancellor in their pre-K-12 initiatives. And then I was able to author 2 books, which is really great. And one just got a linked for pre-order with Teachers College Press. So that came out last night, actually, and that's called The Magnitude of Us. And it's a teaching guide for educators to bring in culturally responsive teaching into the classroom. And then the second one will be out next year, and that's actually based around the oral histories that I did during my dissertation research. So that's the historiography, and that's with the University of Illinois Press that will be out in 2025.
Thank you both. So next question I have for both of you is, what advice would you have to anybody else who's looking to, follow kind of in the same footsteps or in the same career spaces as both of you?
Advice for me would to be just personal balance in general. I graduated right during 2020, during COVID, and a lot of social justice, equity, that all started becoming a lot more mainstream. And having been in it, trying to work through it through my undergrad, it was kind of a nice fit. But then there is a burnout when it comes to equity, because, and I've had this conversation with many people, is that sometimes, yes, there is like a third of a step forward and then 5 more walls. And it's the persistence of moving forward that has allowed me to continue pushing. And then also the recognition that forward progress doesn't always look like goals being achieved or look like policies being changed or broken down. It is sometimes just finding that one more person to help me either connect with that is already within the same mindset, or helping to build a mindset within someone else. And so recognizing that within yourself to where you don't burn yourself out fully while walking down the path of DEI. At least I can't speak of other programs just because I haven't been there, but that has been the biggest advice that was given to me that's helped me through the last couple of years. And hopefully it can help someone else moving forward.
Thank you, Tyler. And Dr. Bunch, what advice would you have?
I would say find your people, find your passion for what really you want to research, and create that dedicated time that you make it a part of your daily task where you focus on whatever that research is. And I think everything else kind of falls into place after that.
Thank you. And again, we're at the point in time where we can open up for questions from everybody else. So if you have questions about career questions, work related, that for both of our panelists, feel free to ask those. If we don't have too many of those, we can open it back up for any general questions about student experiences, about online programs or anything like that that we can do to help. While folks are thinking of some questions that they might have about things, I'll go ahead and I can ask you both another question, I guess. Um, is there any class that you took that you think that you're able to like something that you learned from a specific class or something like that that you found like most applicable or something like that to what you're doing currently? I'll give you both a minute to think about that if you need to.
I found the historical and social barriers class really, really helpful and applicable to my research area. I think it's also really important to take classes that maybe aren't necessarily in your research field. So, for example, I took Asian American history, and that was fantastic. The qualitative research class was really great. I did some independent studies that were also really, really important.
Thank you.
Yeah, two of the classes that stick out a lot for me were my critical thinking in education and then also my human rights in education course. Both of the critical thinking in education, it was one of the most easily applicable to working with high school students because it is something that I had already seen a lot of my students struggling with. And so it was something that I was able to take direct practices and put it into the classroom immediately and start seeing a lot of those results. And it's been fun to see that idea of practice and theory working together. But then one of just the most exciting was the human rights and education course that I took. It had a lot of overlaps with previous courses that I had, but part of it was timing too. It was right as the Palestinian conflict was occurring, and so we had some really deep honest conversations with that. And it allowed me to have some very direct conversations with a lot of my students that were talking about it as well. And bring in a lot of those facts and ideas that students, I learned a lot that students speak a lot through emotion and most of the times as we speak to other adults, they like facts and figures. And so providing them those facts and figures and those ideas on how to actually create those powerful meanings behind their words rather than just using their emotions, it allowed for a lot of them to start making bigger waves within what they are trying to do. And so it was just exciting and nice to see that how quickly it was able to be intertwined into my teaching career.
Thank you both. While folks are thinking, I'm going to go ahead and launch the second poll. Feel free, don't have to answer it until you get ready to leave, whenever that may be, but just want to do that so that I don't forget. And while folks are still thinking of any questions that they might have. And again, if you don't have any questions career related, if you have questions about the program, classes, faculty, anything like that, you can go ahead and ask those too. Yeah, go ahead, Danielle.
I'll come off mute because I'm tired of typing. This question could be for either person on the panel. Was there one class that you took, and I'm thinking about this because I think both of you all were in the diversity and equity program. Was there one course that you took that, knowing what you know now, you would have paid more attention to?
That's a good question.
That's a really good
Uh,
question. Oh, go ahead. Were you gonna talk, Tyler? Go
oh,
ahead.
you can go ahead. So it's a great question, but honestly, for me and my mindset when it comes to learning, it's difficult because I thoroughly enjoy learning. And so there was many times where I delved deeper into the literature versus listening to the professor because many times it was just a quick recap of the literature and stuff that we were reading. And so I wouldn't say there was any that I wish if I had to pinpoint, it would have been my oh, what was it called? Um, I'm pulling up my class list real quick. Um, it would have been either my globalization of higher education or my globalizing educational policy courses, just because again, those were the two courses that were more focused on higher ed, and there are definitely applicable components of that ideal within even the US American system or US educational system. And but it's more of how are we taking this and globalizing it throughout. And to a degree, I wish I had paid attention a little bit more so I could focus on how to dismantle some of those concerns that I see within our district that fit within that concept. But because it was outside of my main interest area, it was more the professor was very focused on higher ed and she was very direct on letting us know that it was more of a higher ed concern that took away some of my interest within the course, but that was my own personal component. But no matter what, from every course, I got exactly what I needed, though, to continue to move on and to continue to implement those things that I could within my district.
And I would echo a lot of what Tyler said. And I think the one class that if I could go back and pay better attention, probably the methods courses. I feel like there's so much that they cover, that those are always good classes to have extra reminders. Quantitative research, for example, is not my forte. And so now having left the program, I'm like, I do wish I knew more about that. So maybe when they were talking about quantitative research, paying better attention, my ears would perk up when they'd say qualitative, and then when they would say quantitative, I was like, eh. So just going back and kind of having that broader perspective of methodologies that maybe weren't ones that I had intended in using at the time, because I could see myself using others in the future.
Thank you for the tough question, Danielle. Any other questions from folks? Oh, here's a good question. So we have a question about mental health as a doctoral student. What advice would you give about maintaining positive mental health as best as possible? I know that they say doctoral student, but I know that students in the master's program have similar struggles from time to time. So if there's any input that both of you would have on that.
I actually probably should have been better at this because I kind of get in something and then I go at this crazy pace, which I would not necessarily recommend. But I think those moments of self-care, they are cliche, but but not. So making sure that you just have whatever that looks like for you, moments of that. And then I took classes in the summer. I think in hindsight, I would probably recommend people have their summers to kind of recoup and rest and not have to think about school. And then I think imposter syndrome, I would say, is a really that's a thing. I think there are moments I still am like, really? And so I think just being vocal about that, because advisors and peers and professors are so good about kind of talking you through that and just reminding you that all of those kind of feelings are normal, and offering encouraging words and words of support.
Yeah, Dr. Bunchu saying that it was cliche. I was like, I wish I had something like insightful or new or like all power, whatever it may be to say. But some of the things that helped me at least is, like I said, time management was huge, and dictating that no, I'm going to work 2 days and I'm not going to work at like, so 3 days out of the week when I was taking only one class a semester or an 8 week, it was 3 days out of the week. The other 4 days were for me. And um, one of the things that I've just always found for myself is just making time to have fun. I feel like as I've gotten older, a lot of my friends are like, "Well, what do you mean you have fun?" I'm like, "I go do something. Like I go to escape rooms. I go do VR randomly. I go have fun because that is why I'm doing these things too. Yes, I'm working on my master's so I can help students and be there for them, but I'm also trying to then better my life as well too. And through that, I've got to remind myself that like I can still be a kid inside. Like I I was gonna take classes over the summer, but the two courses I wanted to take weren't available over the summer, and so I kind of got lucky in that because if not, I would have been taking those instead of going on the vacation that I went on and spending time with my family. Um, but self-care is huge, and I am a very go 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 type personality as well too, and having the opportunity to kind of grow a little bit in the sense of okay, I can take care of myself and I coach, and we had a another team who came and brought their wrestlers with us because we're getting ready for districts, and one of their coaches had a shirt that said it's okay to not be okay. And knowing like just that simple reminder sometimes for myself was what it took to say, okay, I'm struggling right now. Like, all right, I need these 2 days. Let me focus. Let me do what I need to do. And having the support around me was huge because there was many times where within those days, my girlfriend would be like, "You're stressed. Like, take some time off." I'm like, "No, I need to get it done." She's like, "No," and she would literally close my Chromebook, and I couldn't do anything. And I'm like, "Okay." So having those people around you to hold you accountable for your own mental health is also very important. Because yeah, my colleagues were there and everything else, but those people who know you intimately, or at least hopefully there's someone in your life that knows you intimately, and if not, call your parents or call a sibling or something like that, just to help keep you accountable. Because um, if you're anything like me, you can hyper focus and really burn yourself out. And taking that time to take some time away is necessary.
Thank you both for those words of wisdom. While folks are thinking of any other questions, just wanted to remind folks that this is recorded, so it'll get sent back out to everybody afterwards. Also, if you're watching the recording or any of you who are even here now, think of any questions that you'd like to ask, you can always reach us at onlineprograms@education.illinois.edu, and we're happy to get those questions answered for you. So we do have a question for both of you. Not sure if either of you will have answers for them for this one. Do either of you have any tips for finding funding for your classes, either through the grad college or any other way? I, I'll just chime in here that if you have questions about financial aid and things like that, we can connect you with our Office of Financial Aid to help get those questions answered for you. A lot of people's situations are unique, and so we like to try and handle those as we can and do our best for folks. There are a few scholarships for folks in doctoral programs, and there is also a scholarship for all new EDM students that is awarded based on need. And there's nothing additional that you need to do to be entered in for that one-time scholarship for EDM students. So faculty review your application materials, and then that is awarded afterwards. So did just want to toss it in there, but do either of you, did you have anything else to add specifically or not?
The only thing I would add is if you are a current teacher, sometimes if I know at least for my district, we do programs with close universities that the district itself will help pay. But Illinois was outside of our jurisdiction and stuff, and so but many times too, there are different grants available from community components within your own community as well that will help to pay for certain initiatives. Sometimes the few that I did find, or at least looked at, wanted um, specific programs that they were looking for, but there were many that were just, hey, here's $1,000 to go further your education. And so I would say look at those too. Many times, a few of those I found through our seniors, like their community scholarship program, and that allowed me to at least reach out and try. But then again, different programs, and so they weren't able to fund that.
Thank you both, and thanks, Brianna, for tossing that down in there. Yeah, we're happy to connect you with the Office of Financial Aid, and you can reach us, and we're happy to help answer those questions. Online programs at education.illinois.edu, or there's also the Office of Financial Aid directly at finaid@illinois.edu. Any other questions as things are kind of winding down? Okay, well, if you think of any questions afterwards, or if you'd like to get in touch with each of the panelists, if you have something specific, I'd be happy to help coordinate that, get those questions answered, or any other questions about our programs. Again, you can reach us at onlineprograms@education.illinois.edu. Thank you all for coming this what is evening for us, but maybe a different time for anybody else, depending on where you're at. And to all of you watching the recording back, thanks for tuning in. Again, thanks again to both of our panelists. Really appreciate you both for participating this evening. Really appreciate that. And with that, I wish everybody to have a great rest of their day. Take care.